Welcome back to Wine Time Mysteries, where true crime and the unexplained collide. I'm Joey, and I'll be your host for today's episode, joined by the lovely Ashley Rose, of course. And today, we are heading to a location steeped in history, mystery, and supernatural occurrences. The infamous Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana. A place that blends true crime stories with chilling paranormal claims, leaving visitors with more questions than answers. Before we dive into today's haunting story, a quick shout out to Immerse Rose for collaborating on this episode, which helps make this podcast possible. Immerse Rose is brought to us by none other than Ashley Rose, my co-host. If you are looking for a psychic reading, channeled messages, and an all-round good vibe with like-minded souls, please visit her linktree/immerseroseau. We have been to Louisiana on at least one occasion that I can recall, which was all the way back in season 1, episode 12. Can you believe that this is currently episode 123 of season 4?
No, I cannot, but I also can't believe you can remember that far back. Look at you go, girl.
I'm amazing.
I'm just great.
Unfortunately, just like episode 12, the topic of enslaved people will come up in today's episode, but please note that it is not going to be as horrific as our case on Madame Delphine Lalaurie.
Oh, Lalaurie.
In fact, today's episode shouldn't be all that gross at all because it's a spoop.
I love me a good spoop.
Same. It's actually a nice reprieve from talking about like death and murders and people eating children. I kind of enjoy it. Anyway, to get to know the Myrtles Plantation is to get a little bit of a historical recap. So the plantation was built in 1796 by General David Bradford, a man fleeing prosecution. And you may be thinking, oh, why was he fleeing prosecution and why did he get to this place as a plantation? What the hell?
What did he do?
Well, it was for his role, or at least the role he played, in the Whiskey Rebellion.
What did you say about whiskey?
Interesting, right?
What did you say about whiskey?
Well, look, TLDR. Too long, didn't read.
Is that a gen... What's that from?
Suck a dick and read a book. Actually, don't. Because...
You read too much.
You read too much and we know what's wrong.
What you read.
Yeah. So TLDR, the Whiskey Rebellion was a violent protest against a tax on whiskey that took place in the US from 1791 to 1794.
I don't know what happened, but I probably would have been a part of that.
They said, "You can't tax my whiskey."
How dare you tax my whiskey? I like whiskey. Don't do that to me, whiskey.
Yeah, you do not like whiskey neat. You like whiskey and Pepsi or cola.
Or lemonade.
Oh.
Whiskey and lemonade's good.
So originally, the Myrtles Plantation was not called the Myrtles Plantation at all.
It wasn't?
It was called Laurel Grove.
Oh.
Tell us how you really feel.
That sounds more like an estate.
Yeah, because it kind of wasn't really a plantation at the time. So it was basically just, it became his safe house. And it did not look like the grandeur of the building that we have today, even though it has a terrible history. It was like really understated and quite small.
So that was his hidey hole?
Yeah. But it wasn't until 1834 when the property was purchased by Ruffin Gray Sterling.
Ruffin? Oh, what a name, Ruffin?
Yeah, Ruffin Gray Sterling. And he was the one who expanded it and made it like this big, beautiful, quotation marks, big, beautiful plantation.
He wasn't roughing around.
Read the room. So the plantation's success obviously relied heavily on enslaved labor, a grim reality of history. Records indicate dozens of enslaved people worked the fields and within the home, though their individual stories remain largely untold. It is said that the plantation had about 5 enslaved people in 1820 and that the number grew to 32 by 1830. So 10 years, they ended up getting a whole bunch more people to help out on the plantation. I don't know if they were all purchased in the slave trade or if some of the slaves had children, because a lot of the times they would have children. Those children would be put straight into work. They would be working on those plantations as well.
It's so messed up.
It's genuinely horrible and horrific and horrifying. Slavery, as it is most commonly known, was abolished in the US in 1865. However, fun fact, not so fun, did you know that it was still used as a form of criminal punishment after the fact? For what crime? I don't know.
What?
Yeah, they could enslave you to somebody.
As punishment?
As punishment for your crime.
Quotation marks. Punishment.
Well,
I'm going to punish you.
but here's the thing. It didn't specify that this was a punishment that like Caucasian people also received. I'm going to read between the lines here and assume that it was a punishment only black people received.
That sounds like a white man's way around getting a slave back.
It absolutely does. And remember, we're still in the South, so that's kind of what happens. So unfortunately, we don't like that. Like all spoopies, what is a haunting without a little death on the property? The plantation's history is marked by sorrow and loss. Sarah Matilda Woodruff and her children.
Oh.
So reportedly, they succumbed to yellow fever in the early 1820s. There's no definitive records of this account, so we can't really prove that happened. William Winter. Now, this story to me is actually wild. So William, old Bill, was shot on his front porch by a stranger, a trespasser on the property, right?
Yeah.
Just walked up and went, boof.
Billy go bang.
No, Billy got banged.
Billy-
No.
Oh.
So he got shot just while he was hanging out on the porch. I don't know if there's a rocking chair, but it feels right.
Yeah.
And he ended up like obviously taking the bullet, and he went inside and then he started going up the stairs. And at first I was kind of like, well, I mean, maybe his gun, maybe he had a pistol or a shotgun or a rifle or something. And that was upstairs and he was going to go get it because he was going to do some shooting of his own.
Yeah.
I mean, meanwhile, he's shot. He makes it to the 17th step and dies
Oh.
in his wife's arms.
Oh.
So what had actually happened was he was just trying to go and see her for the last time because he knew he was going to die.
That's really sad.
It's very, very, very sad. Now, although him getting shot and dying on the 17th step can be corroborated, so there's historical documentation that backs that, his intentions to go and see his wife and that kind of stuff can't really be confirmed because, one, there is no one alive anymore that would have been alive at the time that can corroborate that story. But that's kind of one of the tales that have been passed down through time. Chloe, an enslaved woman. Allegedly, she was hanged by other enslaved individuals after poisoning the Woodruff children that I mentioned earlier. Though historians dispute this story due to lack of evidence, but that's like what people claim.
She poisoned the children.
Well, the Woodruff children allegedly died from oleander poisoning. Have you heard of the oleander flower? Beautiful flower, deadly. Yeah, allegedly they had died from being poisoned by Chloe, but it's inconclusive because there's no verifiable records that really say that had happened. There was also, of course, just deaths of the enslaved people that are there. And while like numerous enslaved people lived on the property and worked on the plantation, specific instances of death or mistreatment are undocumented, unfortunately. And this is because of a number of things. So one, like slavery was abolished, right? And a lot of records were burnt intentionally or destroyed intentionally. There was also like a war going on too, so the courts that did hold the documentations, a lot of those got burnt down. And it wasn't because it's like a slave court, it was a normal court, but it had that documentation in it. So a lot of people unfortunately will remain unknown and unnamed forever.
That's so sad.
So touching on a little bit more of Chloe, right? So I want to talk about her because she is one of like 3, I guess, most common, most popular, most well-known paranormal entities or experiences that you will have in this particular house. And lots of people have apparently seen her, from employees that work there to visitors to people, because you can rent a room just to stay there as like a hotel. Like it's like almost like a bed and breakfast. You can just stay there nowadays. Obviously it wasn't at the time, but you can now.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't, and I'm not gonna. So according to legend, Chloe poisoned the Woodruff children with a cake laced with oleander. Some say it was in retaliation for her perceived mistreatment. I don't like the fact that they used the word perceived mistreatment in there. She was a slave.
Yeah.
She was receiving mistreatment. You can't mince your words on that. It would have been something that would have happened.
She was a slave.
Story has it that Chloe had one ear because apparently, allegedly, she was caught eavesdropping. And the ear that she was using to listen in on conversations was cut off as a punishment and as a lesson to be taught for why you should not eavesdrop. Now, because that happened, she fell out of grace with the family. So she made this cake and she cooked in the oleander or baked in the oleander because she thought that what would happen is they'll just get a little bit sick and then she can nurse them to health. And because she was the one that brought them back to health, she's back in the good graces and they're all good. She does not know that oleander flower causes death. It's not something that you're really going to escape too much from. Rumor also has it that Mrs. Woodruff, I believe her name is, was also pregnant at the time. So she ate the cake and 2 of her children ate the cake. And then they're dead.
I mean, she got her ear cut off.
Yeah.
They cut off her ear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that wasn't done nicely. I'm sure she wasn't sedated and then like, lay down, we're just going to surgically
Yeah, it would have been
yeah.
gone, right? And she's the one that was hanged by the other enslaved people for the crime that happened, for the death of the Woodruff children. And after she was dead, her body was thrown into the Mississippi River. However, while that story is like everything, everything bad, there's no historical evidence that Chloe ever existed. There's no evidence at all. And yes, it could be that some of that documentation, as I mentioned before, like a lot of that was destroyed. It could be because of that. But they have no historical evidence that there was a slave called Chloe that worked on the plantation, let alone inside the house. So I don't know if that's like that revisionist historian sort of stuff where it's kind of like we want to kind of maybe lessen some of the sins of our forefathers. But
yeah,
either way, apparently there's just no proof that this lady existed. But the story is there. So it's kind of like there must be a nugget of truth in there somewhere, right? Like
something has to be, yeah.
But then I was going down this like rabbit hole because they're also talking about the green turban, and apparently that's related to another person who wasn't even her. It was like a white lady who had like a green dress that she always wore, which eventually ended up becoming Chloe, who was enslaved and entirely different to that person. And then before that, it was another person who wore like a green hat. Like there's a lot of mess around that. So the origins of that story I don't actually know, but I feel like there's either truth in it or like someone's been playing telephone and they can't hear very well. And I don't mean like, you know what telephone is?
No, I mean because she lost an ear.
Oh, double murder. Right.
Yeah, no, but the old, yeah, I know what you mean.
So not only is Chloe a fixture in this house, speaking of fixtures actually, haunted mirror, nice segue. There's a large parlor mirror that is believed to contain the trapped spirits of Sarah Woodruff and her children. Again, this is very, you be the judge of if you believe that her soul is trapped in this mirror with these kids.
Yeah.
I believe that there are certain spirits or energies that can connect or attach themselves to certain items, but I don't believe that an object can be used to trap a soul or a spirit in that kind of way. That to me is like a little...
Yeah, you can definitely use objects to feel into and get the memory and stuff like that and connect in with someone. But yeah, trapping.
It's a little like,
Yeah.
But this mirror, apparently visitors frequently report seeing ghostly faces and handprints appear on the glass, despite efforts to clean it. Some believe that the mirror's paranormal phenomena stem from a failure to properly cover it during mourning. So apparently it's a southern tradition that when you're in mourning, when someone's died, you have to cover all reflective surfaces, mostly just mirrors in the house. And that's to stop spirits from being trapped in them. And this one mirror apparently was not covered, and now the spirits are trapped inside it. But like, funny story, not funny. Well, it's not even not funny, but it's just like, I've seen the mirror, and you know when the back of a mirror takes some damage, like it gets scraped or gets whatever, there's like a dark grey cast or something that happens at the front, like something weird happens to it, and it's kind of like that. But I can also understand, like, what I think it is pareidolia, where you see something that you're interpreting as something when it may not be. But there was this one guy who also stayed there, and he stayed there with his brother-in-law, and apparently they got up one night and they went to the mirror because there were lights inside the mirror floating around, and apparently it illuminated their brother-in-law's t-shirt. He was like, it looked like a glow stick. It was like bright and then gone. But I mean, I would laugh if someone was standing behind them with their torch. Like, that would be kind of funny. I would laugh at that. The other one is William Winter's ghost. So basically, after his violent death, it kind of inspired one of the plantation's most enduring hauntings. So guests often hear like phantom footsteps echoing the staircase, stopping abruptly at the 17th step, which is where he allegedly died. There's also apparitions resembling him that have reportedly been seen on the porch and in the main hallway.
Yeah.
That's creepy. And then obviously, I guess the trope in general. So there are other things that people claim to see as well. So shadow figures that frequently dart through the hallways, especially in the children's rooms. There are visitors who report hearing disembodied laughter, which they believe belonged to the spirits of the children who once lived in the house. There's a grand piano in the parlor that has been known to play a single chord by itself, and often only late at night, not during the day. But that to me kind of feels like a little bit of a trope. And then furniture moving on its own, and unexplained cold spots that also pop up randomly across the location.
Oh, I don't like those cold spots.
No, I wouldn't mind one right now because it's very warm.
I've had those though, like the cold spots are like the gush of like cold air or something like that when you're in a room. Where you're in a room that's like fully closed off and you feel that and you're like, ugh.
Yeah. So like most haunted locations, paranormal enthusiasts and experts and investigators obviously flock there because they want to see if they can, one, experience this for themselves because they're like adrenaline junkies for that stuff, and two, that they can actually catch it so they can prove that it's a phenomena and they can, well, monetize it, of course, but demonstrate to people that it is real, and mostly to skeptics who like are completely against the idea of any of that sort of stuff happening.
Yeah.
Now, there are 3 that I'm aware of that I'm quite familiar with, actually. So TAPS, Ghost Adventure Crew, and the Midnight Society, all 3 of those groups went and investigated this particular property. So TAPS featured on ghost hunters, and the team apparently captured disembodied voices, sudden temperature drops, and the sound of footsteps during their investigation. And the investigators also reported feelings of being watched and witnessed objects inexplicably moving.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Creepy. And then there's the Ghost Adventures crew. They recorded EVP, so that's electronic voice phenomenon, in the parlor and in the children's rooms with responses that seem to correlate to their questions, which we mentioned before is known as an intelligent EVP. And they also experienced sudden cold spots and observed shadowy figures in key areas like the hallway and the staircase. The Midnight Society, this is a local paranormal group, they reported consistent activity in the children's rooms and on the staircase itself, and they documented toys moving on their own and heard faint laughter during overnight stays. So a couple of them have corroborated the similar sort of things, from like the shadows to the kids laughing and that kind of stuff. So I mean, that's kind of creepy. I don't know what was captured on camera or what have you. But there's also one more. So Frances Kermane, who was a former owner of the property, she chronicled her experiences in a book that she wrote, The Myrtles Plantation, The True Story of America's Most Haunted House. And she described poltergeist activities such as lights flickering and furniture moving, as well as sightings of women in period clothing. So just for a little bit of a recap, there are common themes and findings. So apparitions, the most frequent sighting involved was a woman in period clothing, believed to be either Sarah Woodruff or Chloe. There were poltergeist activities, so lights turning off and on, objects moving and doors opening and closing without explanation, phantom sounds, unexplained noises including footsteps, laughter and a piano playing, and cold spots, sudden inexplicable temperature drops in certain rooms or hallways. This kind of gets us up to the conclusion for today's episode. The Myrtles Plantation remains an enduring mystery, blending historical tragedy and compelling paranormal lore. That's just a fact, you know?
Facts.
Its combination of documented deaths, unverifiable legends, and persistent reports of ghostly activity ensures it will continue to intrigue visitors and investigators alike. So whether you're a skeptic or a believer, there's no denying the allure of a place steeped in history and the unexplained. What are your thoughts? Do you have any? Hello down there.
That is very interesting. That's all the ingredients for a spoopy place.
It's all the ingredients for a spoopy.
I really want to go Google it now. The Google, I want to have images. I want to go read that book that you just said. It's very interesting.
Maybe you should. And you know what, listeners? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Would you spend a night in the Myrtles Plantation? Share your stories and opinions with us on social media, which you can find in our links in the bio.
You should do it.
If you dare. But I gotta go. I'm parked in a loading zone.
Yeah, you should probably move your car, you slut.
All right.
Goodbye. I'll take my whiskey neat. That was really off. That sounds more like an estate.
Yeah, because it kind of wasn't really a plantation at the time.
Sorry.
So that makes sense.
Shut your mouth.
No, it didn't ruin anything. That was funny. I like
Laurel
that.
Grove.
Laurel Grove. What is a haunting without a little death on the property? Right.
Yes.
Yes.
I was trying. The clocks were.
The cogs.
The clocks. The clocks.
The clocks were ticking.
The clocks are.
They were as well, but the cogs were.
Pretty bird.
Pretty bird. Boof.
Billy Go Bang.
No, Billy got banged. No.
Name of your porno.
Name of my film. Billy got banged.
Billy
no.
got banged.
Billy
Went boom.
Oh no. That's so bad. I shouldn't even keep that in.
No, don't keep
it's
it
going
in.
It's going in the real editing.
Oh god.
Well, because mine too, Billy got banged. Like, hello. So, center ourselves.
I'm sorry, the whole time when you're like on the 17th store or something, you can hear someone shitting their pants.
What's that noise?
Someone has released their bowels.
They released a demon.
That's creepy.